I need to tell other women they do not need to suffer in relationship. This does not need to happen where you are sacrificing your life in order to please society or people you grew up with or your family or whomever. Your relationship with yourself, which hopefully we're here on this earth for so long, that is the relationship that is most important.
My guest today is Julia Mazur. She is a podcast host of PMD Pod, all about dating, and I do think she's a dating connoisseur. I ask her dating questions myself even, so we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty of modern dating, all the woes and dynamics of it, what's good, what's bad, and what you can do to find your partner or increase your chances of finding the best partner. So Julia, how are you doing today? Can you please elaborate on what exactly you're focused on and doing in the world today?
I'm so excited. First and foremost, this is our third time recording together, and I think that it was meant to happen that way, right? Like, we're in this new studio. I think that this is like the right time. I'm excited to see what comes of it. So thanks for having me.
Of course.
So I host my podcast Pretty Much Done, really to help people reduce the shame and stigma around being single. It's for people who are pretty much done listening to societal noise and pressure surrounding dating. I grew up as a Russian Jewish woman, I guess girl even, being told from a very early age that I should get married, have children, live this very typical white picket fence life. And I found myself, as I was trying to embark on that journey and that path of finding myself like very lonely in those good on paper relationships. And so I figured out that I needed to recalibrate and figure out what it was exactly that I wanted out of life and, focus on the relationship I have with myself, because I think that that's paramount when it comes to dating. I think so many people try to find their wholeness in another. And when I was doing that, it was like this bottomless pit of loneliness.
Well, let's go deeper into that contextualization. So let's unpack, what did good on paper mean for you? What does that even mean for most people in your position?
Yeah.
And give us insight into what your life is like after letting go of that good on paper. I think so many people's life begins, especially women, when they accept that what seems to be good on paper isn't good for the heart and their evolution. And then many people can't ever escape that trap and end up dying with that person, and a whole life outside of them is never met. So give us a little more insight into what that meant and how you found your way out of it and how you feel now outside of it. And was it worth it?
So I think that it probably is just a cultural thing for me of what I deemed good on paper. This may vary person by person, but I'm a Russian Jewish woman who grew up in LA, and good on paper in my culture and the society that I grew up in has a nice job, can provide for me, it went to a great university, maybe owns a house, is Jewish, is handsome, by societal standards. And I found these people, like I kept finding myself in these relationships. I would say like 3-4 of these relationships. And I thought to myself very clearly in one during COVID, I thought to myself, if this is like going to be the next 60 years of my life, what will my life look like? I felt like I lacked ambition because my partner could provide. I felt like we weren't exploring life's nuances together, and we were just like planning these lavish vacations, or what will my 3-carat ring look like? And just, checking off these boxes to appease other people. To answer your next question, what does life look like now? I think that for me, I'm hoping to find partnership where our life visions and values align. So I now realize that life doesn't have to look like living in the place where I grew up, buying a $3 million house in LA, having 2 kids, driving a Range Rover. And I understand that that's like the situation that I grew up in and what I saw around me. And that's not everyone is going to understand that or agree with that, but that is just how I grew up. And once I started talking to guests on my podcast, I talked to people. I had this amazing woman on who got divorced. Her name's Anna Klutz. She gets divorced and moves to Paris and falls in love with her neighbor in her apartment building in Paris. Mm-hmm. And her now boyfriend travel the world together. I've had people on who tell me my husband and I picked up and we lived in Barcelona for a year. There are so many different ways of living life. And I think I was just told that there was this one certain template. And now I understand I value travel. I value, my career. I value new connections. And I hope to find someone who values those same things.
What was the driving factor that led you to end things with this person and take the gamble? I think with women, the fear is, if you're in your 30s or about to approach that the potential con of letting this go and being 30 and single and having that stigma attached to me is not worth me letting this go. And that, I think that drives a lot of people. So how did you overcome that? And what was the main factor that led you to believe that was worth doing?
Yeah. I wish it was like incredibly conscious, but it wasn't necessarily that way. However, I think I'm a person who's intuitive and I'm extremely connected to my gut. So just in general, I was constantly feeling anxiety.
I mean is that like what led you to make the decision to trust your gut?
Sure.
Like what was the point where you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Because most people don't do that. If I were to name like the one thing that everyone identify who's found good things for themselves and found a whole new path for themselves, it's amazing. It's almost always letting go of a relationship that was like good on paper, but they had to trust their gut to let go of it. If I'm asking, what was it that made you trust your gut and like just kind of be like, I can't do this?
It was circumstantial. So I was dating this person for like 8 months, and in an 8-month relationship, you wouldn't think that you need to enroll in couples counseling, but we were trying everything and anything. And so we got into couples counseling, and it was my first foray with therapy. And we went to 3 sessions, and I almost think that I needed to be in those sessions to be like, I don't want this. And so I got out, and immediately when I broke up with this person, I felt this weight lift off of me. I was in a relationship in which he did not like that I watched reality TV. So if he would come around the corner, I would quickly change the channel, which is shocking. Like, I feel like I'm someone who has a high sense of self. I was afraid to tell my partner I'm watching reality TV. He did not like my friends. He did not like so many aspects about me. And getting out, I tell people I feel like I had handcuffs on and I was like chained to these shackles to, a peace society. And then I got to be myself. And so after that, that's when I went on like my journey of I kept the therapist that we saw. And I started to just pour into myself.
And from that experience, what is it that makes you do what you do? What is it that makes you feel motivated to help women? Like, what in that experience led to the empathetic response for you to help women not do the same thing? Like, what was it about that experience that created the purpose for you and why you're sitting here today?
Yeah. So I also, during that relationship, because I was so lonely, and I think so many of us were lonely in COVID, I started to listen to podcasts. And I remember very distinctly, I would go on walks every day and I'd listen to podcasts. And I listened to a podcast called Life with Mariana Hewitt. She's like an influencer, and she had this celebrity hairstylist on, Jen Atkin. And Jen Atkin tells her, she says, I tell all my girlfriends a breakup is just one weekend. You move your stuff out and that's it. And it's painless. And I remember going on that walk and something like stirred in me. I felt this feeling. And then when I finally had the courage to leave that relationship, I remembered those words. And so when I could compare how free I felt outside of that relationship, I thought to myself, I need to tell other women they do not need to suffer in relationship. This does not need to happen where you are sacrificing your life in order to please society or people you grew up with or your family or whomever. Your relationship with yourself, which hopefully we're here on this earth for so long, that is the relationship that is most important. Your parents are not going to be in bed with you when you're with this partner. Your friends are not going to be, having the intimate moments or the arguments with this person. And I think at that point, I realized like I'd rather be ashamed or called a childless cat lady or crazy or, a lost soul rather than feeling anxiety every day and feeling depressed in a situation that I didn't want to be in.
Gosh, makes sense. Well, let's I want to get this topic eventually, but let's tackle it now. What is your take on being the whole movement of empowering women to be 30 and single? What's your perspective on that?
I mean, obviously, I feel like I'm a voice for it.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of fell into my laps that I became this voice for it. I create social media content to go along with my podcast. I hope to empower women to feel less ashamed, because I felt like I was riddled with shame throughout a majority of my 20s. And I sort of just decided that I would record this video on a random Saturday, and I spoke about what my morning was like as a girl who was then 29 and single. I said I went to the Beyonce concert. I woke up at 10 a.m. I decided I was going to make shakshuka and watch reality TV. And I said in that video, I said, and when I realize I'm not where society tells me that I should be in life, I feel very grateful for the fact that I get to spend my Saturday this way, because I thought to myself, my sister, I've spoken to her. She's already gone to like soccer games. She's going to a kid's birthday. She's, woke up at 6. Like, it's a lot of responsibility because she has 2 children. And so I'm grateful for this season of my life. And at first it was all fine. And people on social media were like, yes, thank you. I feel seen. This is exactly how I feel. And then this man who I was not familiar with, named Matt Walsh, he's a right-wing political commentator. He takes my video and he tweets it to his 2.2 million followers on X. And he says that my life is meaningless and I'm too stupid to realize how meaningless my life is, because my life doesn't revolve around family and children, and it revolves around celebrities. Mm-hmm. He has no idea who I am. He has no idea, but he took that truth from my 1-minute video. And immediately I got this barrage of hate comments, and just people calling me, saying that the only reason why I'd have children is if they would rape me and sexually assault me. I should not leave my house. I'm ugly. I'm a man because of the size of my skull. Like, all these just horrid things. And it was at that moment that I realized I thought this was a cultural thing for me, because I grew up in this, more traditional Jewish culture. But this is a societal thing. People, I mean, we know that right now America, or society in general, is just so polarizingly split. But I realized that this is why women find themselves in abusive relationships, in lonely relationships, like, because they have this fear that people will judge them if they're not. So yeah. I felt empowered to be like, this feels like I was placed in, this role for a reason. And I really hope that women don't have to experience that same experience I did.
Yeah, I'm looking at this from a spiritual perspective. I'm not saying this to diminish what you experienced. I'm sure it was painful and horrible. And what I am saying, maybe you can agree to this, is that what a beautiful catalyst. Like, what an amazing catalyst to make you double down and really flex on yourself. Like, no, I'm this way. All these, conservative, religious white men, like, you know what? For me, in speaking my truth, getting judged for it and shamed for it and yelled at for it made you realize, like, no, I'm going to keep saying this shit. So how did that experience make you, even though it's painful, how did it help you, like, double down into who you are now?
Yeah, it totally empowered me. And I think I was struggling for a long time of, like, what is it about dating that I want to say? Because I did have some experience dating. I worked at Tinder for over 5 years. I knew dating was what I wanted to speak about. I just didn't understand who I needed to speak to. And so it was like I was given this audience of, oh my God. And I recently was at, like, the Summit of Greatness that Lewis Howes had in LA. And there was this talk that I went to, and this guy, Rory Vaden, said, your, like, target audience is the woman that you used to be, or the person you used to be. And for me, woman I used to be. And I think so much about the woman I was in my 20s who honestly needed male validation as a source of, like, oxygen. I just needed to be in partnership in order to validate my existence. And now it feels so great to be like, okay, I've done this work. I've gone on this journey of self-healing. I feel very validated in my own skin. I know who I am. Let me talk to you, whoever you are. If you need to hear from me, like, let me talk to you and show you how I did it, and be a safe landing place to feel less ashamed.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about the 30 and single concept. I think I'm going to try and bring some nuance to it. Like, I think on paper, more conservative men or men like me can see it and be like, women are saying this as a way to stay there, to stay 30 and single, and kind of like empower themselves or gaslight themselves into thinking that they actually don't want children, they don't want a relationship, which in my eyes isn't exactly true. But I don't think it's what you're saying, what the movement's saying. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Is what you're saying that if you want to find true love and a real partner, and you don't want to rush it, you don't want to fall into some narcissistic trap, and you want to allow God, source, universe to deliver you what you meant for you at the frequency you're meant to be to receive that. What I hear you to be saying is that to not shame yourself in the process to get there, to not shame yourself in the 30s to find that person. But I think people misperceive as they believe that what you're saying is that, no, actually me being a single cat lady is empowering and amazing, and I'm okay doing this forever. So what's actually the truth here? What is the message you're delivering? I think it's only perceived in that binary way, which I don't think it's meant to be perceived in.
Yeah, I mean, in general, just like as a generalization, life is nuanced. So it's like we don't have to say, just because I say I'm 30 and single, I'm now adopting the fact that I'm a childless cat lady. And if I buy a cat, it's okay, to whatever. So that's just like in general, I hate that people live in this like black and white culture. So to your point, yes, I don't think that shame is the way through. And I think that there is some feeling of feeling empowered to say, yeah, I am 30 and single, and that's okay. And I think that there are a lot of women who felt like disempowered, and there's probably like generational trauma around this of, women only got the right to have a credit card 50 years ago. So I think that women saying that today, and I don't know that this is like what motivates me to say it, but I think that there are some women who do say, yes, I'm 30 and single. It's their way of saying, I have the right to choose now. It's not your choice. You're not going to shame me into deciding whether I want children, whether I want a partner. I get to say it's my life, and I have that right. Yeah,
I agree with you. It's a beautiful way to be. But at what point does that? Do you ever feel there's a line to that? Is there a line to that becoming destructive, or do you think it's all? I don't know the answer honestly. Like, do you feel there's a line there? Like, at what point could it become destructive to society?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it's going to become destructive to society. I'm not of the belief. I think that people say there's a population crisis. I don't think that that's the case. I'm also not political, so I don't know all the data and facts, and I'm not going to be able to share that with you. But that being said, I do fear self-fulfilling prophecies because I also am a spiritual person. So sometimes I do have this fear that if I say over and over again, I'm 30 and single, am I keeping myself there? For sure. I have this, balance with myself, but I say it to like remove the stigma around single. And so I don't really have the answer for you. I don't think that this is going to be a detriment to society. And I think that honestly, men like JD Vance calling people like childless, cat lazy, or whatever, it's like a marketing ploy because we understand that it's better to be like on one side or the other to get this like fanatic audience. I'm just saying, like, let's live in the nuance and we'll figure it out as we go. I don't think that this is I don't think it's this big of an issue as like these fanatics and radicals are making it out to be. And like Matt Walsh calling me an idiot and all of his followers saying that I should be sexually assaulted. He was just playing to his audience. And I think that like if you somehow feel so extremely triggered by me saying I'm 30 or 31 and single on the internet, it's a call for you to look internally. Personally, that's my belief. Like if I am really angering you and you can't unfollow me or block me, but it's like riling something up, I'm like, what are you projecting here? What have you
unpack that? Like, what do you we can figure out together, but let's start with your theory. What do you think it is in men that make them so triggered by this idea? Like, what do you think it is about, I don't know, and most men who hear this and are like, what do you think in them gets triggered?
I mean, I think traditional men, there is this belief, right, of like this, I need to be a provider, and like the cavemen provided for the women. I mean, these are like hundreds of years ago, and we don't live in that current state, but whatever. Biologically, they want to provide and they want these things. And so I think that they're triggered that when a woman says, you know, I'm okay being single, because she's felt so like marginalized for so long and so much shame around it, that equates to, I don't need you. I don't need a man.
Mm.
And I don't think that that is what that's saying, at least not in my case. I want partnership. I desire it. I think that there's an innate human need for connection. You know, we all want to connect. And I think that these men get angry because they think that women are saying like, I don't need a man. I don't want a man to approach me. I'd pick the bear.
I think it's deeper. So like I think they believe that a guy getting super triggered by this believe that a woman's mostly their only role is to submit to the man and have babies. That's like what they perceive to be the role of the feminine, and that's like their own way of viewing the world, and that makes them feel empowered. It makes them feel like the more dominant species. And you know, if you have nothing going for yourself as a guy, that's the only thing you have to go off. I'm a man, I can do this, and I think that's what triggers them is this like worldview of that the woman's here to serve me, to have my kids, to empower me. Where sadly that is shouldn't be the way.
Yeah, I think now as women and men are becoming more equal and women are gaining rights that they didn't have before, we have to evolve. And, you know, I have my parents are immigrants from the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with my mom, cooked dinner, you know, cleaned the table. Like my dad never got up. And that was just like how it was in their culture.
Yeah.
But today, they've been married almost 40 years. Today, I want a partnership that's equal.
Well, let's unpack that. I think you and I will see differently there.
Sure.
Let's try and find the common ground here. When you mean equal, what do you mean? You want equal your partner. What does that exactly mean?
I want us both to bring, I mean, not necessarily the same things to the table, but I want us to both share in, you know, if one day I'm like not at my best, my partner comes and picks up the slack. Or if they're not at their best, I mean, it's not like my whole desire for a relationship, but just like knowing that what your partner's needing, you can provide, and vice versa. And I think that like when I think about raising children, which is something that I'm not sure about, like I think that in my parents' generation, it was like the woman takes care of the child. I think there's a role for a man to change diapers and get up when the baby's crying. And I don't think that was the case before.
Yeah, I think when I hear you, I get it. But to me, that just not equality more so means to me that there's like a ignorance and non-acknowledgement of masculine and feminine dynamics. That's what I hear when I listen to you. But when you're saying that, like, you know, we should pick up the slack and treat each other with love, that to me just is love. So
yeah,
to what extent does that get to you, hearing like what's your perspective on that, like honoring masculine and feminine dynamics? How do you feel about that?
Well, how are you defining the masculine here and the feminine, like
I got you.
in practice?
So I mean, there's different energetically it's a different story towards the more traditional view. I think there's like a more societal view of like masculine means provision, protection, and just care.
Yeah,
I guess that doesn't mean that. I think when women hear that, it's like that. What gets me upset when women hear provide and protect, they mean it to mean that means I have to submit to you, which is the case for most men who don't know what the fuck they're doing. To me, it's not the case. I think I want to provide and protect so I can give the woman freedom to do as she pleases, whatever she wants. That means kids, whatever. Just I want to make her feel like she can do whatever she wants. She can go make an art store or a cafe or some shit. I can fund it like that. That's more so what I mean. That's a more traditional view of that. Energetically, the way I perceive it is that the feminine has a higher capacity for nurturing, care, like a maternal instinct of love. That men should have as well. We both should have these things integrated. But in my eyes, what I want for a union is she is the radiant, maternal, caring person, just very sweet and kind. I still have that in me, but I'm more like the like stoic, less emotional, person that she can kind of like bounce off of. She can figure her stuff through me, through my. Because I think for men, when I see dangerous men who cause issues or bad partners, when I've analyzed them and seen them, they're hyper emotionally dysregulated men who then, because the woman leans that way, not, she's not, I'm not calling it crazy or chaotic, a woman or emotional in many ways, and then she has to basically like process stuff through him, and he gets triggered by her triggers, and he's sitting there like going crazy with her as well. When I see men who just sit there with just like calm, helping her, because women are hyper threat sensitive. That's the way you guys are wired from years and years and years of misogyny and all this stuff.
Yeah.
When a guy sits there and he can help you process your stuff rather than being like calling you crazy or controlling you, that to me is what I mean masculine and feminine. The masculine's strong enough to sit there and listen with poise and help her figure out her stuff, not react, not get super aggressive. And the woman has the space to be free, the space to dance, to be loving, to be emotional. That's more so what I mean. But I think masculine and feminine dynamics nowadays is perceived as submission domination, which I think is demonic. I don't think that's the way. So how are you with that? What pieces in there do you agree with? What pieces in there do you have questions about?
Yeah, I think that toxic relationship you described, that is codependency. That's not relationship. That's not like the partnership. That's just like two people feeding off of one another in order to not like look at their wounds and have each other like solve each other's wounds, right? The partnership that I agree with and we're on the same page is, I think it's like this ability to feel safe to express those emotions and to feel seen and heard. I believe it's like the Hoffman Institute, or there's this like couple that put on the Gottman Institute, correct? Have you heard about this like looking in the out the window thing that they do?
No.
They talk about how in most relationships, what you want is, let's say you guys are at home, your wife says to you, honey, look out the window. What you want in that situation is you want your partner to say, oh, what's out there? But in so many relationships, when you're not pouring into one another and you don't feel safe and seen and heard, your partner can say, what are you talking about again? Or what? That is like, for me, that's unequal partnership. You don't have the room emotionally where you're pouring into yourselves enough that you have the capacity to look out the window when your partner wants you to look out the window.
Yeah, I'm still confused what you mean by equality. Is it more so like a treatment? Like what? Because to me, what I think equality means from a male's perspective is like everything's the same. Like money's the same. You know, we treat each other like we're equal. Like there's no gender. What do you mean by equal there? Like, I think what you're saying, I hear what you're saying is you treat each other with the same level of like respect and kindness.
Yeah. And I think,
that's what you mean.
I guess equality isn't necessarily the word. It's like you're both bringing something to the table that help make each other better partner. Like not make each other better, but like make this partnership thrive. And I think for so long it was like the woman was bringing so much. She's providing for the care for the children. She's cleaning the house. She's ensuring that her husband's sexual needs are met. Like all these things, I think that now there is availability on the male to bring those same emotional things to the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the traditional perspective on marriage, in the sense of the woman doing all the caring, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The man not having to do any of it is an old pastime that we don't have to be in. But what do you feel about my perspective on it? I think, so with dating, even though I have my own beliefs, I do want something like that personally, right? But what I do, my biggest rule in life is honoring free will. Like I don't have the right to tell anyone to not desire or do what they want.
Yeah.
If you want a relationship where, you know, the woman's providing and doing all the stuff, and the guy's sitting there and, you know, doing the female role in my eyes, I have no right to say anything about that. That's what they want. That's their own patterns. Like that's my perspective. Like I don't ever want to infringe on anyone's free will to follow the love they desire. That's my perspective. That's why I think that's what gets me confused about this stuff. Like why do I'm one of those guys, right? I do want a woman like that. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'll put my hand up and say that without shame.
I know you do, and you're my friend, and I totally accept that about you.
Yeah, but for me, it's like just like from someone of the opposite. who the fuck am I to say that's not what they want? You know, like I have my own view. I probably agree with Matt Walsh on many things, but it's like, who the hell am I to say that someone else can't have the love they want? Like, that's love, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And I think that all I want to be, and by the way, my sister has a pretty traditional marriage and we grew up in the same household. And I think that it's beautiful. I think the marriage and relationship she has is wonderful and works for her completely. But I want to be, because that was what the only thing I was exposed to growing up. And then I realized that wasn't like something that was on my heart. I didn't feel like I related to that. I felt like I was wearing a mask trying to do that. I just want to be this place for women who do relate to me and do feel those same things, to feel seen, safe, and heard. And Matt Walsh can live his life how he wants to. And so I think that is my problem with people on the internet. When you see a woman who's 30 and single, why do you have to be so angry and call her this childless cat lady? Like, if you really are so rooted in the decisions you've made and you love the partnership you're in, go love that partnership.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why you're feeling triggered by a 30-year-old woman. And I mean, I've done therapy, right? I think that like they're just projecting because they're like, my way is the only way. And we don't live in a world where there's one way.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move towards not using this as a frame of mind. So I think we're living in if you were to ask any person between ages 20 and 35 how they feel about dating in America right now, they'd all tell you this is the piss poor worst thing in the world. Almost every single person. I mean, if someone tells me that they're dating and life's amazing in America, I'm always like my eyebrows raised. Like, what the hell are you doing? You're either a humongous sex addict or there's something's going on here. So
yeah,
let's try and get to the nitty gritty of it. Like, what doing all these podcasts, talking to all these experts, you thinking about it all the time. If you could pinpoint some things that you believe are causing this crisis, and it is a crisis, what do you believe it is? I have my own theories, but let's start with yours, and let's branch off of that. And I think actually what I believe to be the problems have to do with what we just talked about. But so what do you think what's causing this crisis?
Interesting. I think that analysis paralysis, due to the fact that people have, become accustomed to dating on dating apps, has caused people to become really poor daters. So you spend an evening with someone, they meet all your criteria, you get home, you get on a dating app, and you think this person is like a little bit more attractive. I'm going to go out with that person. And so we've lost the ability to connect to humans. We're just constantly chasing the next best thing. And we know that it's around the corner because it's at the tip of our fingertips on our phones. I worked at Tinder for 5.5 years, and the stand that I'm not going to take is dating apps are the worst thing ever, and there are plenty of people who have gotten married and met, and we've heard amazing stories.
Sorry to digress, but just before we move on, did you learn anything dark in there? Like any dark secrets that were, some conspiracy that you believe, like, or is that
people
see any
always
of that?
ask me this, and they're like, "What is it like behind the curtain?" Yeah. It's a business. They have to monetize their platform. Any business needs to monetize in order to survive. Unfortunately, there are humans involved of like, these are the people that you're monetizing on. Just like they have growth product managers who are focused on monetization, there's also product managers who are focused on how do we help people in this single journey. I don't think dating apps are vile and the worst thing ever. I think that there is a responsibility on the dating apps to help educate people on how to be better humans, when you're dating. But no, there's not like this secret layer. I'm not going to take that stand.
Yeah. I mean, my curiosity goes to, we'll turn back to the original point, but I think it's an interesting topic. To me, obviously it's a business. I get that. All capitalistic endeavors involve some level of manipulation in sales. I get that. But to me, it just seems like the people that are profiting off of are insecure men. Those are the ones paying the bills. So to me, my brain understanding business, it's like, okay, if you're profiting off of insecure men to like keep buying roses, buying super likes, to keep liking all these people, is there not an incentive to make them keep feeling more insecure? That's who pays the bills. That's most of my conspiracy brain goes to. But I don't know the answer to that. That's where my brain goes to in a way.
I guess. I mean, if you think about like the video game industry, it's a very similar target demographic,
Yeah.
and they're, you know, it's just less human, right? They're like charging people for like guns and boosts or whatever on Call of Duty or whatever. That business is still going to be there.
Yeah.
For Match or Tinder or Bumble or whatever to get out of the game because their target consumer is insecure. I don't think that that's like a wise business move.
Yeah. No, I feel I just was more to throw it out there. Okay, so what else? What else with apps do you think is detrimental? What else in there? I mean, you so far listed that there's just like an abundance of options.
Yeah, and I think that like human connection is just completely missing, and I hate that now when people go out, or even if you think about something as small as when you're in the elevator with someone, it's the first thing someone does because they're uncomfortable. They check their phone. And so I think that we are at this like inflection point with dating right now where people are so tired of the apps. They just want any human connections. They're literally like joining run clubs and pickleball leagues because they just want to meet other people, and they've forgotten how to do it. I get people asking me all the time, like, how do you approach people in the wild?
Yeah.
And then there's this, you know, obviously social media creates this discussion where, and I'm not even like part of this discussion and I don't know it so well, but apparently there's this discussion that people constantly reference on my content of women were asked if they were in the woods, would they choose the man or the bear to protect them? And women were saying that they choose the bear. And so then there's this perpetual thing of, well, now men have a chip on their shoulder and resentment because women said that they don't want to be approached by the man, so we're not going to approach women. And it's like, and obviously the Me Too movement contributed to that. So I just feel like although we're connected, we're more disconnected than ever.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. I'm the controversial person that believes that women should approach men.
I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
Just like I don't feel like there should be shame around being single. I don't think there should be shame
I say that
around.
because every single, I mean, we'll get into our personal stuff eventually, but the best dating experiences I've had, like by far, is when the woman chose me.
Yeah.
When that dynamic was set where I was like pursuing and quote unquote chasing and like trying to validate myself by getting her, it always was the worst thing ever. But when a woman chose me and said, "Hey, I like you. I want to get to know you," for some reason, the woman's having that dynamic off. I have my own theories, but that's worked for me much better. I've had a much higher success rate with that thing. So I appreciate you empowering women to do that.
I don't have a theory around it so much as like I'm not on dating apps right now just because I realized they weren't serving me. And I now, you know, challenge myself to just connect with humans out in the wild. And I truly believe that like when you do that, doors open that weren't opening for me on dating apps. It's like, even if I talk to someone who maybe is in a relationship, they might know someone who knows someone. And then you're just like widening your community.
Before we close the door on dating apps, I'll talk about my personal experience. And apologize if I sound like I'm bragging. I'm just trying to get to the truth here. So objectively, I think I'm an attractive person, and that shows on a dating app. You know, I think I downloaded like a month ago. Within 2 weeks, I had over 100 matches. They're all super attractive. And then in that, I was experimenting. Okay, if a guy like me can't crack this thing, then how the fuck can Joe Schmo do this? I treated it as some kind of experiment. I realized, okay, so it's like 100 women are very attractive, and then maybe like I'd say out of that, maybe like 20 were engaged. Okay. And within that 20, maybe like 7 or 8 could have led to an actual date. So how do you explain that? How do you explain the vast majority of women on these things how does that happen? Like how does that really happen in your eyes?
That, like for the Joe Schmo, like
no,
whose
like,
perspective are we?
Someone, like even someone like me or someone who's like what's leading so many women to not engage at all? Or I don't know what's like. I'm not blaming women. I just don't know what it's like on your side, but
it's happening on both sides.
Okay.
It's just people validating one another. It's truly that. And I mean, social media has become that way as well. Someone slides into your DMs, someone sends you a fire emoji, someone sends a heart. That's not intentional dating. That's just validation.
Okay.
And I think that these platforms are very validation based. However, there are really intentional daters, and there are amazing people who have been on my podcast who teach you how to intentionally date, and I take a lot of their advice. And so when you're on the dating apps, it's not look for the hottest girl in the bikini. It's sorry. It's look, her political views align with mine. She's saying that she does want kids and I want kids. It's like reading their profile to figure out, do our life values align?
So what you're saying is on the dating apps, or people who aren't engaging as much in it, they're using it as like, okay, this person like me, I like them. I get a validation hit. That's all I need you for. Right.
Yes.
And anything beyond that is like, but what's not allowing them to go beyond that? Is it just they just got what they needed? They don't want to, because I'll tell you this, which is crazy. I've had multiple women I've matched with on Hinge approach me in public, being like, I matched with you, I think you're so attracted, but they never answer my message. It's like, what the hell, is going on here?
Yeah. I mean, I think some people say that they're dating, and they might not be in the season for dating. Maybe they're afraid to admit to themselves, I saw this cute guy and I kind of just want to see where this goes and have a little fun fling. But there's shame around saying that, I'm not in the season of I want to find my husband, because society tells women, get married before 30, get married. And if you do anything but, you are a slut, or, you're a whore, all these things. And so I think that people need to be real with themselves. When I first moved to Austin, you and I probably talked about it, and you're like, how's dating? What are you doing? If I'm honest with myself, I just quit my job. I just turned 30. I just moved to a new city. I wasn't in my season for dating, but I was on dating apps. And what I was doing is I was exploring, what does the dating landscape look like in Austin? And I didn't know it at the time, but I just wanted to meet new people and connect.
Yep.
And so, I think there's a lot of power in figuring out what it is that you want.
Yeah. Final question on the apps. If you're someone who's using them, for those listening who do use them, please tell us the best way you would go about using them.
I am adopting this from someone else. This woman, Damona Hoffman, she's an amazing dating coach. She's written a book called F the Fairy Tale. And she says that dating apps are a tool in your tool belt. It's not the end all be all. It should be something that you use. I've had dating experts on my podcast who say, go on once a week, take 20 minutes out of your day or an hour, make that your dedicated time, and stick to it. When you are someone who's checking it every day and making it like your job and using it in that way, not going to be a fulfilling process, not intentional.
How can you get any dates for using it once a week?
You swipe, you send your likes out, you respond to your messages, and then you go on your merry way. Or like even once a day. Yeah. Once a day, let's say. But people who are constantly checking it, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And then only try and pursue them if you feel like there's a connection, a intellectual connection or philosophical connection beyond the bikini and shirtless pic. I
guess, but it's like, it's going to be hard to figure out if you have an intellectual philosophical connection. I think that it's just like, do you like this person? Maybe you and I have like debated this, but I like a phone call before a date. Maybe that's too intense.
No, that's good. Because then it saves you time.
Saves you time. So like, I like to just like hop on a quick call, see if there's chemistry. You don't have to understand if you guys are both like gonna be each other's happily ever after. Do I like this person? Do they ask me questions? Do they make me feel safe? And then I honestly think like that first date should be short and sweet. It should be like an hour walk, an hour coffee.
Okay. That's your move. Just
I like to be courted, even though I'm so non-traditional. There are some things that I like that are traditional.
What does courting mean to you?
A guy making plans.
Okay.
A guy making a plan.
That's it?
And paying for the date.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah.
So some traditionality is needed here.
Yes.
Okay. I mean that makes sense to me. I think honestly, I think that's why, if you're real with you, I think that's why men get frustrated. Is I get it. Because I can understand nuance. I completely understand it from my perspective. I'm speaking from their perspective. It's like they only want these rules when it suits them.
Sure.
So what's your response to that?
I don't think it's a lot to ask for to pay for my $8 coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a heavy lift. I'm not asking you for
like, why do you want the $8 coffee paid for?
I think it sets the tone.
I'm the kind of guy who I'll do that no matter what, even if it's like $500 coffee. But it's like, why do you want that? Right?
I think I want to be pursued by a man.
Mhm.
And I do think that in like this society, men are unfortunately put in this position where they get to choose. Like they're dictating a lot about dating. And it's like, well, if he texted me or this and that, like I think that like guys are initiating a lot of that. And up front, I think that that's like a nice sign of is he interested in me? Is it, is there intention here?
Mm-hmm. At what point do you feel like, because I get that. Again, I'm going back to my own original point that the earlier I see the woman invested, I know she's chosen me,
Mm-hmm.
the more likely I am to pursue it, and it leads to a better result. So at what point do you reveal your interest? Like you...
Right away.
Okay.
I mean, like I'm always indicating interest. So like if a man is texting me, I'm responding. If he's asking me out, I'm interested, right? So I'm like saying like, yes, would love that. Here's my availability.
Yeah.
I'm thanking him for planning a date. Like I'm there.
Mhm.
I just need him to lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then how does that leading carry through? I think I'm confused. Most men are confused because it is nuanced. I think it can be black and white. How does the continuation, the perpetuation of leadership look like for you? Right? Because you just want him to leading in the sense of like, pick a date, pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But then where does that go? Like where does that go? Where does that leadership go?
Yeah. It's like at what point does he stop leading?
Or at what point is leading attractive? At what point does leading feel misogynistic or oppressive?
I think let's change the word from leading
Mm-hmm.
to showing intention.
Okay.
So I think that like if a man wants to date you with intention, he is making effort. And by making effort, it means giving you time, making time for you, planning a date, checking in. And I think that like in the first 7 to 10 dates, that's what I like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me.
Yeah.
And someone listening might not want that. I grew up with a father who took care, like he did that for us. He opened doors for us. We didn't worry about like whether we had a dinner reservation. I grew up with that. That feels like home for me. And that's what I want. And I'm pretty certain like I'll indicate that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's now move to in-person strategies. So what are your current strategies, or what should people's strategies be in moving away from this app-based seduction and interaction process to a more in-person based thing? Like, what do you believe is the way to do that?
Yeah. And I want to caution that like I'm not like a dating coach, and it's hard for me. Like
We'll figure it out together.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I do. This is all from my personal experience and how I've started this process of dating myself and not being on the apps and meeting people organically. And so what I do is like I've started to do something called solo dates, and I talk about them pretty often. I take myself out on one maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, and it can look different. Last weekend, I did a big one for me. I've been wanting to cross this off my bucket list. I've been wanting to go to concert by myself. And my friend was selling concert tickets, and he only had one left. And I thought, this is a sign that I should go do this. I took myself out to a restaurant beforehand, sat at the bar. I love like sitting at the bar. At the very least, you're talking to the bartender. The bartender's pretty bored most of the time. I also think that it's really important that your body language is open. The crossed arms, no go. Mm-hmm. Some people are more introverted, and I understand that. So if you are that way, I recommend like leaning on a book.
Me, yeah.
If you brought a book to a bar, people are going to strike up conversation. It's not like a foolproof plan.
That's what my sister says. She does that, but I literally, my ADHD is so bad I cannot read unless it's complete silence.
Well, then what do you think would work for you if you were at the bar?
I mean, I just kind of, I sound like an asshole, but I'll just stand there and things usually work out for me.
I mean, you and I met organically, mm-hmm. and you approached and said hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're introverted.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is like, I'm not saying this is a foolproof plan to meet people. That it's hard. That's why I don't want to call myself a dating coach. It's not formulaic. Dating's not formulaic. But what I have experienced is that while I date myself and I take myself out on these solo dates and have the bravery, because it takes effort for me to like not, worry about what other people are thinking, and I'm getting dressed up and I'm going to these bars. Every time I do it, my confidence gets higher and higher.
I think to validate what you're saying, as a man, as a good man, I believe, I find it incredibly attractive to see a woman who has the gusto, confidence, and self-belief to take herself out, get looking good, sit at a bar by herself, not need a man to as an excuse to have that adventure. When I see that woman, I see someone who has the strength to enter the unknown, to enter a dangerous territory where she may feel insecure and not seen. That to me means that she's independent. She has her own way of operating in the world without the needing of a man. And to me, even though I am a traditional guy, that to me is attractive because it suggests that she is an interesting, brave, cool, curious person. And that makes someone like me appreciate that and then be like, this person is worth seeing. So I'm fully for that.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that it was something that scared me prior, and doing things that scare us usually pay off in the end. And so I'll just to close the loop, I did that. I sat at the bar. I made friends with the person next to me. Turned out we were in a similar industry, chatted a lot about, being in the podcast space and all of that. Then I went to Jungle by myself. 2 separate women came up to me, stopped me. They're like, I just want to let you know, you are so beautiful. It made my night. Like, I've never felt more beautiful, and I think that why they thought I was so beautiful is probably because I was alone and confident and shining and not letting the fear or shame stop me from enjoying my favorite band at the moment and getting to dance and have a good time.
So your solution here, and in your experience that led to positive results, is just not needing someone else to enjoy the things you want to do, just going out and doing them. In that process of doing the things you enjoy doing, you meet people who also like doing the same things.
For sure. Yeah. And I guess people who like doing the same things, it's hard to say because like you're just sitting at a bar and you don't know.
A concert of a band. Like
yes.
that,
yeah, totally. 100%. And I think that not waiting for a man to do certain things, like I interviewed this woman, Brittany Allen, and she has created something called the Me Moon. And her concept was so interesting to me. I'd always thought in my head, like I'd always saved Napa for like when I'm in a relationship, right? Because it's so romantic. Why can't I go to Napa by myself? Or like, why can't I go with girlfriends? Why are we saving these things for partnership instead like doing them? And
let's unpack that. Like what, I'm someone who's like that. Like me taking a solo trip to somewhere else in the world is like, I would just be like, there's no fucking shot. So let's unpack. And were you always that way, or have you become that way? Just quick answer.
I've become that way with confidence.
Because you weren't that way before.
No.
Okay, so let's unpack like what.
But we need to say this. You and I are different. You're an introvert and I'm an extrovert. So one of my favorite things ever is meeting new people and going out and having random conversations. I love small talk. My best friend hates small talk. I love it.
I hate small talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, going to sit at a bar by myself and striking up conversation and having these little small talks fills my cup. For you, it might look different. That's why it's like hard for me to prescribe this to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, there's just pieces that can be prescribed. Even though I'm an introvert, like, and I can literally, I left my own devices, I'm a hermit. I just sit there, twiddling my thumbs, doing nothing. I can live that way happily. Yeah. But that doesn't get me anywhere. Sure. So I think there's things in this that can be applied to anyone. But the question I have is, I think everyone wants that sense of adventure. There's only positives from it. So in your experience, what in you had to change for you to be comfortable taking these adventures alone, taking these journeys alone, going to a restaurant alone? What had to change? And what do you think people actually, like, why do people need that person to go with? Why are people waiting to, here's the question. Why are people waiting to live the lives they want to live until they find the person meant for them?
I think it's like relationship with self-worth. I think that my relationship with myself, I had to really, really work on. And I've told you, like, I did a plant medicine journey where I ended up seeing my shadow, which was my 18-year-old self who was 208 pounds, crying and telling me I didn't love her. And so now I kind of do it for her. Like she wanted to be seen, and she wanted to talk to strangers, and she wanted to do all of these things, and I still do. And I was robbing myself of those opportunities because I was in my head worried about what people thought. And even yesterday, there was this guy that I like had connected with over Instagram DMs. He was like at this thing, and I was like, I need to approach him and say hello. And it was just like I was a little too forced, but I kept thinking like, do it for her. Get out of your head and go with your body. Like my body was telling me like, just go say hello. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess it's that. It's like leading with heart rather than head.
Okay. That makes sense. And that even like coming back to the initial loop in the beginning, that I think to me, when someone says my type on paper, to me it means they're going about love with their head, not their heart. And I think that's, in my energetic understanding, that's when a woman is in her masculine. She's like, I want a guy from a logical place. I want a guy from like this exact things on paper rather than the heart. How's that shift been for you? Like, are you still following that rubric? Like, are you open to different qualities that you don't want, or how do you feel about that right now? Like, are you still looking for an exact type, or are you more open to the wisdom of the universe and giving you someone that may be different?
I think like the type is at the detriment of all of our dating lives. I think that our type is a defense mechanism. I think our type is familiarity and what we're used to. And if you're someone who's still single, it's not working for you. And so I'm trying to become open to that person looking differently than I thought. I make videos and they're all like in the spirit of humor, and everyone gets so riled up. But I think like 5 years ago, I would be like, oh, I can't date someone divorced. Or I couldn't date someone with children. I'm open to it now because I think that I understand that there might be value in that, like having experienced relationship, understanding what it is to raise children. I'm not saying I'm going for divorced men with children, but I've just like expanded my worldview in that way of like what my partner, the package that my partner might come in. And I think like, yeah, our type is just like, I don't know, I was finding the same guy in a different body over and over again who was extremely emotionally unavailable and closed off, and it wasn't doing me any good.
I think you were even aware of that? I think it was unconscious.
It was, of course, unconscious. Of course.
To me, if I were to describe, I think people should have a type in the sense I'm about to explain, not in like a physical, obviously, you know, people have different physical standards, that I get that, but more so for me, what I look for is certain, I'll elaborate on this, certain values internally or qualities, right? For me, it's like if they're kind, have an open heart, are sweet and radiant, I don't give a fuck if they're like Trump or Biden. I mean that literally. I don't care if they're fucking Christian or Jewish. Like for me, it's like if they're a kind, open-hearted person who is sweet, loving, and radiant. Yeah. The rest, I can't get too picky about. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Like that's more so. I think that's the North Star people should follow. Is like what in them, what qualities in them will become a good partner. And people have beliefs and shit. So what's your perspective on that?
I think that's important for sure, and I think that that's values, right? So like you value kindness, you value someone who isn't necessarily polarizing when it comes to. I think you value acceptance, right? So like if you valued or if you voted for Trump and she voted for Biden, you guys could coexist because there wouldn't be an imbalance, and she's just accepting. I think for me, the North Star of where the relationship can really thrive is, do we want life to look the same way? And I know you can't predict the future, but it's like, I can't be with someone who wants to live in Austin for the rest of their lives. It won't work. It won't work for me. Like that's too hard. And I know that people are going to say that's contradictory if I'm saying I want a man with kids or whatever. There's nuance. Hopefully, and we'll see what that person looks like. But I really do think that at this point in my life, I see myself traveling a lot. I see myself valuing my career a lot and trying to make time for family and friends. And so those are 3 very important things to me. And if someone hates doing family get-togethers and is retired, you know, we're not going to work. So I think that is like really what you need to focus in on. And of course, like as you're dating, like how does this person make me feel? Does my body feel safe around this person? Or am I feeling tingly? Am I feeling closed off in my chest? Do I feel like I can't share what I feel in my heart?
Yeah.
I think those are the really important factors.
So what do you think it is? Because in my experience as a guy, I used to be a pretty clinical nice guy. I just thought that the best way to go about things was being nice, but then in that I was like, okay, this isn't working, and I became that fuck boy, frat boy kind of dismissive person, and then I ended up getting a lot more women that way, which showed me a whole different side of things. And then I returned from there to just be kind of like, I'm not a nice guy, I'm not a fuck boy either, I'm just me, and that has led to much better things. But why do you think that? Why is it that so many women end up? Why is it the guy that the woman end up fucking is usually an asshole? I have my own answer. Like, why is it? Because then men who are good people are like, get frustrated and like, what, I think it's all bullshit. I think no man should be a victim about that. But what do you think it is in that? And were you ever that girl who was like, I kind of want the asshole? And why do you think that is the case?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say one thing. There's so many factors that it can be, but the one that's coming to mind is I think there's a lot of maybe unhealed wounds in that woman. And so same with the man who's the fuck boy. Yeah. I'm sure you can relate.
I was fucked up in all kinds of ways. Yeah.
Totally. And so I think that, women maybe have experienced a magnitude of things like sexual assault, like it's just not feeling safe. And so you go towards what feels familiar to you. And if you're emotionally closed off, it's going to feel good to be with someone who's emotionally closed off as well.
Yeah, just to meet with men who, because I have friends my age, also all friends are very wise in the space, or kind of like gurus, and I also have friends who are my age and just regular guys, regular people. And what I tell them is that that a lot of men will try and be an asshole to get a girl, and I'm like, sit with that. If you end up sleeping with that girl because you were an asshole, how does that feel? Truly, how does that feel? How does it feel in you when you feel like I got this girl being a dick? That just doesn't that's not a rewarding pattern. So same with women. I feel like it's the same with men and women as well, not just one sided.
I mean, if you think about anything, like if you posted a video right now being like saying something that you don't believe in, that feel good or bad, it's like doing anything where you don't feel like yourself is disingenuous, and your body knows.
Yeah. Let's. I want to hit one more chapter before we close up. It's a pretty good one, I think, nowadays, and it returns to my intention of this podcast is being more spiritual. We got a little more into dating realm, but so the issue I see, and I know you'd agree with it before we talked about this beforehand, is that a lot of people, more so women, I'm not trying to single them out just because they're the ones who are more likely to do this because of the way that the mind works and the way we're at in society. Many women feel like I have to break off dating to go into my healing journey and just be in this healing journey, and that will lead me to this person. I see issues with that. I know you see issues with that too. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about people taking like years off just to heal themselves? And where does that lead them? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I struggle with it because like I do value healing, and I know you know this. Like I do believe that you can call in a partner at the same vibration you're at. So I think that like if you're in a place where you're extremely, insecure, low, depressed, I don't know that that's a wise place to be in for dating, because you're going to call in someone who's a similar low vibrational human. But even like as we're speaking, and you and I have talked today ad nauseum about dating, like over analyzing it and like driving yourself crazy about it is also not the space to be in. I think that like you want to be with a partner who accepts that maybe you're not all the way there and you're not all the way perfect, because neither are they, because humans are flawed. And so I think that sometimes even I find myself like exhausting myself to the point of, I actually recently had this conversation, forgot with who, but they gave me some really good advice. Actually, it was someone who was on my podcast, and I said, I'm ready for partnership. Like I do find that at this season in my life, like I really do want to call in partnership. But sometimes as a single person, I live alone. I don't have animals. I'm truly alone a lot. I sometimes feel lonely.
Same here.
Yeah. And I think that when I feel that feeling of loneliness, I try to push it away because I'm like, I don't want to signal to the universe that I'm not ready for my partner because I'm feeling lonely, and loneliness is like a low vibrational feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, you don't want to push it away. You want to sit in that because you want a partner who is going to mirror that, who can accept and understand feelings and not push them away.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's great. So when we tell women like, you need to fully love yourself in order to be loved by someone else, or you need to have X, Y, and Z, or even men, we tell them like, you need to be at this place financially to call in a partner. The person who you end up like falling in love with and creating this partnership with is going to like meet you where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be like this beautiful journey and story, and you guys get to grow together and learn together. And so I worry about taking the healing too far and like almost like becoming this expert at like, I need to be the Nirvana Buddha.
My question is for the people who are saying they're taking space from dating to heal themselves. Are you actually healing yourself, or are you just following your own fear of intimacy? Are you just perpetuating a narrative that you're incapable of intimacy, right? I see that in people. I'm only speaking towards women because that's what I've experienced as dating them. It's a lot of them will have a connection. I'm not saying as a victim, everything's divine as it may be. And there's a connection, but they're stuck in a narrative of like, I'm on a healing journey. I'm single healing journey. I can't do this, which is, thank God they say that, because obviously they're not ready. But it just, I see that destroying so many connections. It's people using this reasoning of healing to perpetuate their trauma around actually being okay with intimacy.
Yeah.
That's a common narrative I experience.
It's valid. Like I could like sit and like play devil's advocate here, but for the most part, I
and there's a lot more nuance to this. I'm trying to speak to what my strategy is in dating. We can you can critique it if you'd like. I've become a lot more, not religious, but a lot more faith in my life. My prayer for everything is I will to will thy will, which to me means I will carry the will, whatever God's will is. So whatever that may be. If I'm lonely for a week or a year or 2 years, I know that's God's will. That's what's meant for me on my path to find whatever is meant to come my way. So I don't sit there being like, if I'm lonely or feeling angry or depressed or all these things, then I'm not going to attract that person, because I know that whatever is my fate will be my fate. I know that my person will come or not come. I can't do anything about that. I just don't. That path of me, if anyone's sitting there critiquing their own shadows, critiquing their own loneliness, it doesn't get them anywhere. It only shames themselves into believing that denying their own fate in a way. So I'm with you. I think it's a useless strategy. And I think one thing that there's many things in dating I'm horrible at, and many things I'm not great at. But one thing I will say about myself that's been helpful for me is I have no fear of getting hurt. I can't get hurt. I mean that. I truly can't. And that sounds insane. I'm not closed off.
Yeah.
When the heart's open, it can't get broken. Truly, when the heart's open and not closed, it can't break. So whenever if you're in your heart, any pain can lead to more expansive opening. So any fling that ends, any girl I date for a month that ends, I'll only grow myself. So I have no fear. Worst case, I get heartbroken. I'll just get more jacked. I don't, it's just like I don't know I don't see the thing. And me actually not being afraid of getting hurt romantically has led me to succeed exponentially. Like the key ingredient in me actually having a good dating life has been having no fear of getting hurt. And that's a nuanced take that's taken to get there. But how do you feel about that? How do you feel where are you at with that?
I think we're on the same page. I mean, I think that what I told you is like in my 20s, I was so tethered to a man and I needed his validation as oxygen. And I think that now I'm filling my own cup with things I love. I love living in Austin, and I love travel, and I love going on these solo dates, and I really enjoy this career path that I'm on. And I think as a result, people realize that when you're most self and you don't need for them, but you want them, that is why the abundance comes. And I too, my prayer, or the saying that I say to myself is, it's either this or better. And so if it doesn't work out for some reason, that means that there's something better around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And it might take a while. It feels like I've been, single for a bit, and it sometimes can get lonely on this journey, but I know there's someone really great coming.
I'm not Christian, but there's a verse in the Bible that says, you may not know now, but you will eventually from God. And what that means is like, in the moment when you're experiencing a lack in your dating life, and you're saying, even Jesus said, God, why have thou forsaken me? Like, why is this happening to me? You will know why eventually. Like for me, anyone who's been in love, when they're in love, can look back and be like, thank God all that shit didn't work out. But in that moment, we can't see that.
Yeah.
But I kind of use that foresight of I literally will call up my future self, who's with his woman, my woman and my children. I'll just tap into the energy of being like, just know that like you'll find out why all that one date didn't go well and all this stuff. But how are you feeling with your level of intimacy? Do you feel like you're truly not afraid of it? You're ready for it? Where are you at in your own heart?
Yeah. Full transparency. I think that there are still I still have some work to do in terms of like being fully vulnerable with intimacy. I think I still have some blocks, but I think if I didn't have things to work on, life would feel meaningless to me.
Yeah.
So I do find myself in the season of my life where I'm surrendering, and I know this person is coming, and all I am doing is like pouring into the cups that I want to pour into.
We all have blocks, insecurities, myself included, for sure.
Yeah.
The question is how do you not let those blocks, insecurities affect your willingness to accept connection?
By putting myself in situations that make me uncomfortable, connecting with humans, not putting so much pressure on whether these humans are going to be my partner or not, and enjoying the beauty that is life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having my spiritual practices, doing what calls on my heart.
Yeah. I think this is a controversial take, 'cause it goes against a lot of what I believe, actually, but I don't listen to my instincts when it comes to dating. Because my instincts most of the time are just patterns of trauma and pain.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'll have a really good connection with someone, and then a week later, my instinct is like to run away and to like be like this person and try to negate them in my mind. And a spiritual person can believe that's just my intuition telling me. But for me, it's like, no, that's my little boy in me who was terrified of intimacy as a kid, who didn't get the love he needed, wanting to perpetuate the narrative. I think that if you're someone, my childhood was emotionally horrifying in many ways, and that my brain was developed that way. And for anyone in that boat, which is a lot of us, you can't really trust your instincts when it comes to dating. Like I'm not saying they're right sometimes, and they're right because maybe you will get triggered in that relationship, and that's okay. But in my experience, it's been wise to just like, when that instinct to run away comes, just give it some space. Just like don't trust it. Like keep talking to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up. Just give it space to breathe. And in my experience, you'll see with enough time. Yeah, man. Like my ex-girlfriend I was with for many years, I wanted to run all the time. But thankfully I didn't listen. And that's when I fell in love, when I just like I just didn't follow that way of being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I've done that as well. And, even if it hasn't worked out, it's taught me a lot. So I just think, I think there's so much to be learned in partnership. There's so much to be learned in dating. And like, obviously that's why I'm in this field talking about it. I love thinking about how humans connect. And, maybe you and I will talk in 5 years and I'll say, you were right about this. And, I don't feel this way anymore, because that's like it's like evolution is beautiful in that way. Well,
thank you very much for coming here and allowing your experience to lead the way. I think it's a noble pursuit and very honest and great. And I appreciate your friendship and having someone on the female side of things to bring these concerns with and keeping me in check in many ways. So thank you very much. And everyone, please check out her podcast, PMD Pod. I don't cover these topics much, and she does a much better job than me in discussing them. So please check her out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
My pleasure. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here, and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.